Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Lon Al here, the homesteading pastor, here on Harmony Acres Homestead in Hartsville, South Carolina. I want to welcome all of you to our second episode of Come Sit a Spell. Hopefully be on here, like I said, every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Appreciate all of you that joined us last week and have watched the videos since last week. And I appreciate all of you checking us out this time. I also like to say before we get into our talk tonight that if you have already subscribed, we have picked up some new subscribers here lately, and we are thankful and grateful for that. And if you hadn't subscribed, we'd really appreciate it if you would. That really help us out, help our channel out a lot. Give us any thumbs up if you like the videos, and ring that bell if you're a new subscriber so you'll be notified of future videos, and share these videos with whoever you think may be interested in watching them. So appreciate all of your support, all the feedback, and all the comments have really been a blessing. I read every comment that comes across our channel, and as you can see, I try to respond to all of them, as I said before. So appreciate it. Also, some of you have been giving in prayer requests. Definitely won't call any names other than Little NC Farmer. I've been talking to him this week. Just continue to pray for him. They still desire your prayers. I see where he put some of on his community page this week, so I just continue to pray for Little NC Farmer from North Carolina, his whole family. God's working, and we believe in, and we're going to continue to pray for him, as well as a lot of other subscribers on here. You've given in requests, and we're going to continue to pray for all you guys and gals as well. So if you have any other requests, please put them in the comments below. But I want to talk a little bit tonight. I want to go back in time a little bit again. We're going to start talking about some prepping issues too a little later on, maybe the next video. But I wanted to walk back down memory lane a little bit tonight. I wanted to talk mainly tonight about, last week we talked about some of my being raised up here in the South in Darlington County. And we're going to still talk about some of those things as they come up. Got a few more, different topics I want to talk about concerning that. But tonight I want to talk mostly about my two granddaddies, my mom's dad and my dad's dad, and we're gonna talk about them a little bit. And they were both my grandparents, of course, but they were a lot different, and I loved them both. Probably was closer to my granddaddy Gainey, my mom's dad, just because of his lifestyle. And I'm gonna share a little bit of both of them with you tonight. Love them both dearly and miss them both dearly. But even with grandparents, like it is with kids or family members in general, there are people that you have more in common with, and you seem to get closer to those people. So to talk a little bit about my granddaddy Al first, like I said, his name was LG Al, Lonnie Gandy Al Sr. Lonnie Gandy Al Jr. His daddy was Lonnie Gandy Al Sr., my great granddaddy. But my granddaddy LG, he loved to hunt and fish when he wasn't working. He owned owner and operator of Al's Grocery in Dulesville, South Carolina. But he loved to deer hunt, he loved to fish. He especially loved to fish for redbreast. There's some of the rivers around here locally in our area. For those of you that are around here, anywhere like Little PD River, Lumber River, Black River, Black Creek, any of those places like that that had a redbreast in it, that's where he liked to fish. So he used to fish for that redbreast, and brim was his main two fish I think he liked to catch the most. And also he loved to deer hunt, and he done that a lot. He was the president of two different hunting clubs around in our area back in his day. He was a good cook. He cooked more than my nana did, my grandmama, his wife. He done most of the cooking, and he cooked at the hunting club a lot. And he was a very good cook. Unfortunately, I didn't take any of that from him. I wish I had. But anyway, he was the owner and operator of Al's Grocery in Dulesville, South Carolina for 35 years plus. Anybody in this area, you talk about Al's Grocery or LG Al's store, they know exactly where you're talking about. And he worked for Seaboard Coastline. I kind of briefly mentioned this last week, but he worked for Seaboard Coastline for 30 plus years as well. Don't know exactly. I think my granddaddy Al was right around 65, 66, somewhere along in that. I didn't know exactly what his age when he passed, but I do know he passed in 1989. But he ran the store He probably would have ran it even longer, but somebody broke in it and stole a bunch of stuff out of it when they went out. Instead of just robbing the store or stealing stuff and leaving, they threw a can of gas or some kind of fuel in there with a rag in it and lit it and burned the store pretty much all the way down. Anyway, it was open since then. Somebody else has sold the property and all, and it was somebody else's, but it never was the same way it was when it was Al's Grocery. And everybody, traded with him there, and you could pretty much buy anything from his store. It's one of those old country stores with the wood floor, and you could go in there and you could buy anything. And I wrote down some things to try to jog my memory. A lot of stuff I can remember because I was there all the time. But some of the things that he sold out there, and he sold gas and oil. He had, like I said, gas pumps. He sold kerosene, and like I said, quarts of oil. He sold ice. He had an ice machine there. You could buy ice, but you could also go in and buy those things. You could also, it was one time there, he sold fish bait, mainly like earthworms and crickets at one time. That was very, very brief. He also sold stuff like hoop cheese. It come in the round wooden crate, and had the little red wax stuff on the outside of it. And he had a big old cooler back there, and I remember he had a string hanging from the ceiling and a scale to weigh everything. That's how he charged by the weight. And he would throw that, he'd cut that, he had big sticks of bologna, like we call it bologna around here, on what y'all call it in other parts of this country around the world. But we call it bologna, and he would cut you a big stick of bologna, a big thick slice of that hoop cheese, and you could buy a honey bun in the store and get a good old Mountain Dew, and it was hard to beat. Or you go in there and buy a Pepsi Cola and put those peanuts in the Pepsi Cola. I don't know if any of you ever done that, but we used to do that a lot here in the South as well. But like I said, he sold anything. He sold any kind of groceries pretty much, canned goods, pork and beans, potted meat, Vienna sausage. He had those big jars of hot sausage on the counter. Pickled pig's feet, you could buy that there. I love hot sausage, but I didn't ever mess with the pig's feet. I'll leave that to somebody else. But he had those cured hams hanging up in the store. He sold fresh fish. He'd have them have a foot tub sitting on the floor, like I said, it was an old wooden floor that would make the cracking noise, screeching noise when you walk across it. But he'd put it in a foot tub and have that cardboard wax box and have it cocked up sitting in it with the holes at the bottom. We'd ice them down. And every evening or every night, my brother and I would go out there and fill up the drink boxes. And unfortunately, he sold soda in it: Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, Coca-Cola, Mountain Dew, RC Cola, Orange Crush, grape. I can't think of it. Was it Knee High, something like that? Anyway, he sold those kinds of drinks. But he also sold beer, and he'd sold wine as well. So can't change the past. It is what it is, or it was what it was. But he did. And he sold cigarettes and tobacco and stuff like that. He also sold candy, any kind of candy, most of the old style candy like Tootsie Rolls and what we call squirrel nuts and Mary Janes and the lollipops, just stuff like that, bubble gum. He sold a lot of the old candy, sugar daddies and sugar babies, the little caramel candy. Many of you remember those kinds of candies or not. But he sold milk. What else they had written down? Pretty much named everything. But also, not only could you buy oil, you could buy a fan belt. I remember you used to walk in the front door and his counter would be straight ahead, and you turn to the left, and drink boxes were down the left side, and you look up, and the whole top, a wall up there, up above your head, up to the ceiling, he had fan belts. And I remember he had a long tobacco stick with a little piece of metal off the end of it, and that's how you reach up there and hook it and bring it down. But he had them stacked up out of the way. But he had a good business there. Race would come to Darlington, Southern 500, or in the fall. In the fall for the Labor Day race, or either the spring race. When they would come to town, man, it was right there on the main drag on Highway 52, and it was used a lot back then. Because people coming from different places, North Carolina, coming up north, lots of times they would come. That kind of remind me of Radiator Springs. They used to go through all the time on the movie Cars, and then when they built the interstate, they kind of bypassed it. It's kind of what happened to Dulesville. It's kind of like a ghost town around there now. But anyway, it was the place at one time. And also in my granddaddy's store, he had a post office. It was in one end of the store. My mama used to work for him. out there and run the store, run the post office, as well as my nana, my granddaddy's wife, my dad's mom. But they ran the store out there for years and years, and we was raised up out there. We used to look out there and see the lights on, the gas light or the Pepsi light or the beer light, whatever you had on out there, we could see it. I'd look out the window. We lived right beside the store back in those days, and my dad still lives there now. But we could always look out there if we get late. He always closed right around 11 o'clock every night. And I remember looking out there. We might need a loaf of bread, might need something for in the morning, going to school or whatever. And we'd always go to the door into the carport and look out. If the light was still on, he was open. So we had a path, a footpath. We'd go from my daddy's house to my granddaddy's store and buy what we needed and come back home with it. But if the light was off, you might as well stay home. He was already closed, locked up. But like I said, when the race would come to town, though, he'd put stuff out there outside. He'd have flags, zigzagged, all different color flags out there, just kind of draw people's attention. He knew how to make money, and he wasn't a millionaire, but he was probably wealthy for an old country guy that lived out in the country in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, he done real good. But he worked all the time. The only thing he done besides working was deer hunting, fish, and but he was a good man, and he always treated me right. He would let me borrow money to like put down a septic tank or run a water line. When me and my wife first got married, we lived in his backyard for a couple of years, and he would loan me the money. He wouldn't give me the money, loan me the money, and I worked and pay him back, which that's the way it's supposed to be. That's what we're all supposed to be. You're supposed to, if somebody loans you money, you're supposed to pay it back. The Bible even teaches us to pay our debts. A lot of people need to practice that. But anyway, that's kind of it. There's a lot more about him, but I wanted to, for sake of time, I wanted to be able to talk about both grandparents, both of my granddaddies. But like I said, he died back in 1989. My granddaddy Al was a veteran as well, and he actually was over in Germany, deployed over there. And I don't remember. Shame on me, but I don't know all the years and stuff. I don't have all that written down in front of me, but I appreciate him. I really miss him, and he really helped me out a lot while he was here. Now, like I said, he done most of the working at the store, worked on the seaboard coastline as a trainsman, and ran and hunted and fished a lot. My granddaddy Al had an education. He went to school, got education and everything. But my granddaddy Lawrence, which is my granddaddy Gainey, which is my mama's dad, I told you last week, he only had a third grade education. His dad died. I don't know how his daddy died or got killed. He really never told me that. But his dad died when he was real young, and then his brother Abraham was the oldest, and he got killed. I told you last week, sacrificed his life to save my granddaddy's life, and back years and years ago, and Abraham was killed by the truck that drug him off the trailer, and he saved my granddaddy's life, and that's why I'm here today, and I'm grateful for that. But Granddaddy Lawrence, he died on Christmas Day in 2013. We'd always go over to his house in the evenings to open Christmas presents, and we made the rounds, different places where we'd always go. My wife's family, my family, my immediate family. And we left and went over there, and before we got there, they called and said that they had found him dead in the bathroom. My granddaddy had, like I got, vertigo real bad, and my mama too. I told you that, I think, last week. But I tried to get him to do an autopsy on him. He didn't. I reckon it really wouldn't matter. But anyway, he fell when he was in the bathroom, and we don't know if he just got up and got dizzy and fell back and hit his head because he had a knot on his head, or if he had a heart attack and fell and hit his head and died. But anyway, my first cousin was staying there with him, and he had ran down the road to pick up some other kids to come back or something, and when he got back, he was already passed. But anyway, he died he'd have been 93 years old. His birthday come June 11th of the following year, of 2014. But he was 92 years old, almost 93, lived a good life. Like I said earlier, he didn't, let's see what I had here. I wanted to make sure, everything about him, I wanted to kind of do it in order. He didn't really care anything about hunting and fishing. My granny liked to fish. They went to the beach, catch the spots running in the fall. And like I said, my other grandparent, my granddaddy, he loved to hunt and fish, but my granddaddy Gainey never liked to do anything. His hobby was working. And he worked at Cox Lumber Company, which is a sawmill, working on heavy equipment pretty much all of his life. Helped keep the sawmill running, and he come up hard. Like I said, he was plowed a mule. I mean, I didn't mention this last week, but he told me he plowed a mule back in his day. See, you figure he was born in 1921, and you figure 31, he was 10 years old. 41, he was 20 years old. So he come up during that time and come through the Depression, and he said he remember plowing a mule for 50 cent a week. Plow a mule, 50 cent a week. I just can't comprehend that. But he said it was too small to even walk behind the mule, but he plowed that mule for 50 cent a week to help put food on his family's table, take care of his mama and the rest of his siblings. Like I said, his hobby was working. He worked at the sawmill. If I'm not mistaken, he worked at that sawmill for like 45 years plus, a long time, maybe 50 years. Like I said, he grew up rough. He always planted a big garden every year, and I'm thankful today that I would get out there with him and help him hoe the garden, plant the garden, fertilize it, water it. He was one of those, he liked to plant a big garden, and whether our family could eat it all or not, I mean, his greatest pleasure was planting a big garden and invite the community to come pick those butter beans or pick those peas, cut that okra, or whatever was out there, watermelons, you know, whatever he had, squash, you were welcome to it, tomatoes and corn and everything else. But he planted a big garden. I'm talking about, I'd be scared to guess how long the rows were. I mean, they were really, really, really long, and he had a wide garden. He planted it for our family and for anybody in the community that wanted to come in and pick out of his garden, and that done him so much good. He never owned a tractor. I wish he had it, but he never owned a tractor. But he had what? Now back in his day, he used a mule. When I came along, he had a what we call. I got it now. He gave it to me way before he passed. But it's called a mule. It's the gasoline one row. I got a little tractor tire at the back and a little small tire at the front, so you can set the depth on it. You can change the plows and stuff on it. But I got that now. I use it here in my garden some now. But we used to plow that thing, and when I first started, it would about kill you, because if you fought it and tried to hold it he showed me that you just lean it to the left or lean it to the right and let it do the work and just let it pull itself along. And it took me a few times to get used to it, but once I did, I was able to do it. You know, bust a row and lay it aside and bust it again, put the fertilizer down. And he always put the fertilizer underneath his plants. And then we'd go on each side and throw it, build up the row, and then go on top the fertilizer and plant it. But I'm glad I done that with him. I remember back in the day, sometimes he had a water hose. It would reach out most of the way out there, but the rest of the way you had to fill up a 5-gallon bucket and tote it and put a little bit of water in each one of the holes to get them started when you planted the seeds. But we ran that plow, and that's how we tended that garden, was with that plow. Like I said, done mechanic work. Well, a little bit of mechanic work I do know, which is not a lot, but I can take care of my own stuff around here, pretty much simple stuff. Oil changes, spark plug changes, and just minor things like that. Brakes, if it's not anything too bad, just pads and stuff. But anyway, he taught me a little bit of carpenter skills I have, and I'm so glad of that today, because since we moved on the homestead, I've had to use that a lot. He taught me how to use a chainsaw and how to sharpen the chain on the chainsaw. And like I said, changed oil in cars and trucks and stuff like that. You know, he taught me a lot while he was here, and I'm so grateful for that. Like I said, he always planted that big garden, and we had such a good time, and I miss him a lot as well. He was Sunday school superintendent at a church he attended for over 50 years, and when we started going to church, I got saved back in 1986, and 86. My wife and I got married in 87, but anyway, got saved in 86, and I can't remember exactly what year, but my granddad was the superintendent for 50 years, and when he stepped down, they voted me in, and there was some big shoes to step into, but done the best I could with it, and I was Sunday school superintendent for several years there, and then started teaching Sunday school, and then ended up, we left the church, and God called me out in the ministry. I started Flat Creek Free Baptist in 2006. We're going to talk about that in another video, about our humble beginnings at Flat Creek. You'll really enjoy that, because you won't believe it, because I still don't believe it today, about how I was called into the ministry and how all that got started. God is a miracle working God. But anyway, that's another video. But also about my granddaddy Lawrence, Gainey. My granddaddy Al, like I said, he was a little more well off, had better education and had more money. And my granddaddy, and like I say, still was a good man. I'm not looking at him in a negative way that way. That's just the way it was. So my granddaddy Al, he didn't have any problem with TV. He had plenty of, equipment where they could watch different channels and stuff like that. He could pick up any kind of TV station he wanted to. Granddaddy Lawrence, my granddaddy Gainey wasn't like that. He had an antenna outside of his house, and he had it strapped to the house, and you had to go out and turn it. I remember many times I'd be sitting there with him. He used to like to watch wrestling or Hee Haw and Andy Griffith and the Waltons and My Three Sons and Gunsmoke and High Chaparral. Anything like that. He used to love all those movies, and there's many of them now that I can't think of. But I remember going outside, and he'd holler out the window and say, I'd turn it and I'd say, is it good enough? He said, turn it a little bit more. Ho, wait a minute. You went past. Go back the other way. And I'd sit down and ease that antenna to the right and ease it to the left. He said, Lon, that's just right. And you'd still be a little fuzzy because it wasn't the greatest antenna. But back in those days, you didn't have just a few stations you could pick up, local stations. But man, I remember turning those antennas for him, and my mom and dad had an antenna like that, but like I said, my daddy worked at a Nucor Steel, and he done pretty good financially. Wasn't rich by any means, but was a little better off financially, probably my granddaddy Gainey was. But he had a rotary antenna where it was on top of the TV, and you just turn it where you wanted to go, north, south, east, or west, and it would automatically had a motor on it, and it would turn it on top of the house. But my granddaddy Lawrence wasn't like that. He still, when I came along, I don't know what year it was, but I was up in school, and I remember my granddaddy Gainey still had an outhouse out in the edge of the woods. That was where they didn't have an inside bathroom until, I don't know, probably in the late 70s, early 80s, before he got an inside bathroom. Had running water inside the house, but not a bathroom. But anyway, we'd have to use that outhouse, and had a little pan that used to slide up under the bed at night if you didn't want to go all the way out to the outhouse. They used that. Like I said, it was just a lot about difference in the way they lived versus the way my granddaddy Al lived. My granddaddy, my granny, my granddaddy Gainey's wife, my mama's mama, she used to get up every morning at 5 o'clock and fix my granddaddy homemade biscuits, what we call cat head biscuits. She'd make that thing up from scratch, and I remember her putting her hand down in it, and you see a little rose in it when it get done. And a little something about her, she used to cook some of the best biscuits. They were good hot or cold. You could eat them. It was just amazing. It was just hot or cold. A lot of times now when a biscuit is cold, now my wife's a good cook. She cooks good biscuits, close to my grandma, my granny. But granny, you could eat them any time of the day, cold or hot. But I remember she used to take and stick her finger in it or poke a hole in it and fill it full of cane patch syrup. That was what she used back then, and fill it. And man, you talking about, that was a meal right there. You can get much better than that. And she'd have kids in the community standing at her back door waiting to get biscuits that she would just poke a hole in, fill it full of cane patch syrup, and send us on our way. Man, I miss those days as well. But anyway, that's kind of the two the contrast difference of my granddaddy Al and my granddaddy Gainey, my dad's dad and my mom's dad. But both of them were good men. Both of them treated me well. I learned a lot from both of them. They inspired me, and I really, really am thankful that I came along while they were still around. And I'll tell anybody on here, especially younger people, if you got a grandparent that's still alive today, that you need to take up as much time as you can with them, because they can teach you some stuff. I'm gonna talk about my parents a little later on another video, and talk about my nana, my Hazel, Al, my daddy's mama, as well as my granny, Ollie Mae Gainey, my mama's mama, and talk about my mom and dad, because they were all good parents. Good. we really had a good childhood. They really looked after us and took very good care of us. But we'll talk about them in another video. But one thing I wanted to walk back down memory lane with, and I want to ask how many of you remember these before I get off of here today. How about that? I looked long and hard to find this. Most people today, a lot of the younger people just ain't got a clue, but this is the way it was. Listen to this. When's the last time you heard this? How about that? Remember dialing that rotary phone? And my mama and my granny they had a phone like this you could mount, you could sit on the table, or the kind you can mount on the wall. But both of them had a much longer cord than this one's got. This cord will reach pretty good, but they could take that cord. And you talk about mobile phones coming along in our time. They had mobile phones back in their day because they were mobile. They had a cord on it, seemed like a mile long. You'd think you could get by with doing something in the next room. They'd be in the kitchen cooking or talking to somebody on the phone, and you think they were into their cooking and on the phone, and you didn't have to worry about it. And before you know it, they don't want to slap you in the back of the head or pinched you or pulled your ear, done something to get your attention when you were doing something you shouldn't have been doing. And I just wanted to feature this. I've been wanting to do this for a while. The old rotary phone, man. It's just amazing that. And I know you can hear it. That was what we used. And you know, back in that day, you had what they call party lines. I know a lot of you remember party lines. You pick up the phone, maybe somebody on the other line. Sometimes it was multiple. It could be 2 or 3 people on the line that shared the same line. I think today, the way it is today, man, the way people's all in people's business anyway, party lines would be a disaster today. Back in those days, I'm sure there were people that listened in on other people's conversations, but we were taught if you picked up that phone and you heard somebody on the other line, you best put it down. I remember many times I'd pick it up, and because I was going to use it to call somebody, and there'd be somebody on the other line, and I would ease either on my finger down on it or ease the receiver down because I didn't want them to think I was eavesdropping on them. As a young boy, I would do that. And then, at another friend of mine, by the way, our coroner here in Darlington County, Todd Hardy, he found this for me. He had it at his funeral home. He's also a funeral director here, one of them. And he called me and told me he had this phone. He knew I was looking for one, and I appreciate him doing that. And then some more friends of mine found this phone. We stepped up a little bit. Russell and Angie Gainey, good friends of ours here in Darlington County, live up next to MacB. But anyway, see, it's got little, and these things will light up so you can see them at night. And this don't have the cord with it. He just bought it for $4 today for me to feature it on my video. But you can walk around. That's how you would hang it up if you don't want to go back to the receiver. You just mash that and hang it up, and then dial somebody else's number. But that's touch tone, and this was the little receiver on that. That's how you hang it up. But I just want to share both of these phones on here. I mean, I hope that takes you back in time a little bit, but that's the way we used to communicate with the old rotary phone and then the touch tone phone. And I just thought that'd be a good idea to share that, take some of it back down memory lane. But in closing, I wanted to mention something else. I know most of you probably, especially in the United States, I guess CBS Evening News was around the world back in the day when Walter Cronkite. I know y'all remember him. I used to love to hear that man talk. But you may not know this. I looked it up, didn't know it myself. But his last broadcast, or the last time he was on CBS Evening News, was March the 6th, 1981. I looked that up today. And you know what y'all know what his favorite saying at the end of every broadcast, he would say, and that's the way it is, this such day of this year. And I'll never forget, I can sit there, I can hear him saying it now. I used to sit there whether I'd be at my granddaddy's house or my granddaddy Gainey's or mom and dad's house and hear Walter Cronkite. He was the man. And when he stepped down, Dan Rather took over. But it's hard to beat Walter Cronkite. I mean, he was the man. And at the end of every one of his news broadcasts, it was always, and that's the way it is. This such day, this day, and that's the way it is. It's March the 6th, 1981. So just want to take it back down memory lane a little bit. I hope this jogged your memory. I hope you enjoyed this second episode of Come Sit a Spell. We'll talk some more about, like I said, me growing up in South Carolina. But next week, we're going to try to talk about prepping. I'm going to try to kind of flip-flop back and forth from prepping because we need to be prepared. Got some things I want to show you that you need to maybe stock up on. And we do need to be prepared because I really do believe there are going to be some things going on in this country in the days ahead. The Lord tarries is coming that we need to be prepared for. So share this video. Give us a thumbs up if you like them. If you haven't subscribed, we'd love to have you on here. Remember all those prayer requests I give in. I know a lot of you have been commenting back and forth in the comments like you always do. So you probably know some of these other prayer requests. But again, still remember our buddy, little NC farmer Brandon over in North Carolina and his family God will continue to work that miracle, and we're expecting God to do so. So appreciate your time. Hope you enjoyed this again. And until next time, remember, Jesus Christ loves you, and Jesus Christ is the answer for any and everything you're dealing with in life. You have a wonderful evening.